The morning sun had barely risen when Kim Do-han noticed something was wrong. His coffee cup was floating 3 inches above his kitchen table. He blinked twice, set down the newspaper, and reached for his phone to call his old military commander. Before his fingers could touch it, the phone vanished in a flash of blue light. So did his table, his chair, and finally, his entire kitchen. Do-han found himself standing in a room made of smooth white metal. The air smelled like fresh rain and metal. A tall figure stood before him, its skin a pale shade of blue, and its eyes much too large to be human. "Lieutenant Kim Do-han," the creature said in perfect Korean. "Please do not be alarmed. We have been watching you for some time." Do-han's Special Forces training kicked in. He kept his breathing steady and his mind clear. "Who are you?" "I am Recruiter First Class for the Galactic Alliance Military Division. You may call me Recruiter." "We need soldiers, Lieutenant. Good ones. Earth has them in abundance, but you are special." Do-han didn't move. "Special how?" The recruiter waved its hand, and a screen appeared in the air. It showed footage of Do-han's last mission in the Special Forces. His team had been outnumbered 4-1, trapped behind enemy lines. But Do-han had turned it around. He'd used the terrain, the weather, and the enemy's own fear against them. Everyone had made it home. "You think differently," the recruiter said. "You see opportunities where others see only obstacles. The Alliance needs this. We are losing our war against the Nexus Empire." "I'm retired," Do-han said simply. "Yes. After 12 successful years in your military. No failures. No losses under your command. And now you drink coffee and read newspapers." The recruiter's large eyes blinked slowly. "Are you truly satisfied with that?" Do-han thought about his quiet life. The peace was nice, but the boredom was killing him slowly. "What exactly are you offering?" "A chance to save lives. To fight battles among the stars. To show the galaxy what humans can do." The recruiter touched a wall, and it became transparent. Beyond it, Do-han saw Earth hanging in space, like a blue jewel. "Your world is beautiful, Lieutenant. There are thousands more like it. The Nexus Empire wishes to take them all. And if I say no, you return to your coffee. No memory of this conversation. But if you say yes," the recruiter held out a small silver badge, "you become part of something greater than Earth has ever known." Do-han looked at the badge, then at Earth floating in the darkness of space. He thought about all the times he'd looked up at the stars, wondering what was out there. He thought about his skills going to waste while he read newspapers and pretended to be content. "When do we start?" he asked, taking the badge. The recruiter's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "We already have. Welcome to the Alliance, Lieutenant Kim Do-han. I should warn you, some of our senior officers believe humans are too primitive for modern warfare." There was a gleam in those large eyes. "I look forward to seeing you prove them wrong." The room filled with blue light again. As Do-han felt himself being transported, he smiled. Primitive, they thought. They were about to learn just how wrong they were about humans. Little did either of them know that this recruitment would eventually lead to humans being banned from galactic warfare, not for being primitive, but for being far too effective in ways the galaxy wasn't prepared to handle. The Alliance Military Academy was nothing like Do-han had imagined. Instead of the strict, orderly environment he expected, he found himself in what looked like organized chaos. Alien species of all shapes and sizes moved through massive halls that seemed to change shape at will. "Lost, Lieutenant?" a voice asked in Korean. Do-han turned to see a human woman in an Alliance uniform with commander stripes. Her nameplate read, Park Ji-yoon. "Commander Park," he said, bowing slightly. "I'm looking for Combat Training Hall 7. She smiled. "You're going the wrong way. Follow me. I've been here 3 years. You'll get used to the moving architecture eventually." As they walked, Du-hon noticed how other aliens looked at them with a mixture of curiosity and dismissal. "They don't think much of us, do they?" he asked quietly. "They think we're cute," Ji-yoon said with a hint of amusement. "Like clever pets who learn to use tools. Wait until you see their faces in combat training." The training hall was enormous, with floating platforms at different heights and holographic obstacles that appeared and disappeared randomly. 20 other recruits were there, including 3 more humans. The alien instructor, a tall being with crystalline skin, looked at them with 4 eyes. "Ah, our new human recruits," the instructor said. "I am Combat Master Yax. Today, we will study proper warfare techniques. Please observe." 2 alien soldiers demonstrated what they called a civilized battle. They stood in the open, their advanced shields flickering as they exchanged energy weapon fire in precise, calculated patterns. It looked more like a dance than combat to Du-hon. "Now," Yak said, "who would like to demonstrate their species' combat techniques?" Du-hon stepped forward. "I volunteer." "Excellent. Choose your opponent." Du-hon pointed to the largest alien in the room, a massive creature with armor-like skin. The alien recruits murmured in what seemed like pity. The exercise began. Du-hon was given a training weapon that simulated an energy rifle. His opponent took position on one of the floating platforms, weapon ready. Instead of standing in the open like the previous demonstration, Du-hon immediately dropped to the ground and rolled behind a holographic boulder. The alien recruits laughed. "What is he doing?" one asked. "Why does he hide?" Du-hon didn't respond. He noted the pattern of the disappearing obstacles, waited for the right moment, then threw a piece of debris to his left. When his opponent turned to fire at the noise, Du-hon moved right, used the shifting platforms for cover, and approached from the alien's blind spot. The match ended in seconds. Du-hon's training weapon was pressed against the shocked alien's head from behind. Silence filled the hall. Commander Park was grinning. This is not proper combat," Yak sputtered. "Where is the honor in such sneaking?" "With respect," Du-hon said, helping his opponent up. "In real combat, the only honor that matters is keeping your people alive and completing the mission. But your tactics, they are primitive, unpredictable. How can an enemy properly calculate their response to such chaos?" "That's the point," Commander Park cut in. "The enemy shouldn't be able to calculate anything. That's how you win." The other human recruits nodded in agreement, while the aliens looked troubled. That evening, Du-hon heard that several alien commanders were complaining about disturbing human battle techniques. "They're calling it cultural contamination," Ji-yoon told him over dinner in the mess hall. "They're worried we'll corrupt their perfect warfare doctrine." She laughed. "Wait until they see what happens when we combine their technology with our tactics." Du-hon looked around at the advanced alien technology surrounding them. "They think they've invited primitives to learn from them," he said quietly. "But I don't think they understand what they've really done." "No," Ji-yoon agreed, her eyes sparkling. "They really don't." 3 months into training, the Academy announced its annual combat trials. Each training squad would face off against the Academy's elite instructors. No training squad had won in 15 years. "This is your chance," Commander Park Ji-yoon told Du-hon's squad during their preparation meeting. "Show them what humans can really do." Du-hon looked at his squad, 2 other humans and 3 aliens who had slowly come to trust his unusual methods. They were considered the odd squad of the Academy, the ones who trained in ways that made other aliens uncomfortable. "The instructors will expect us to fight their way," Du-hon said, spreading out a map of the combat zone. "So, we won't." The combat zone was a massive indoor arena that could change its environment. The instructors always chose open terrain for honorable combat. But Du-hon had studied the arena's systems carefully. On the day of the trial, hundreds of spectators gathered to watch. The instructors stood proudly in their advanced combat suits, waiting in the center of the open field they had chosen. Du-Han's squad entered from the other side. The moment the trial began, Du-Han activated the override codes he'd spent weeks finding. The arena's environment shifted suddenly. The open field disappeared, replaced by a dense urban setting with narrow streets and tall buildings. "This is highly irregular," one instructor shouted, but the trial had started. They couldn't stop it. Du-Han split his squad into pairs. They moved through the buildings silently, using hand signals he'd taught them. The alien members of his squad had thought these silent communications were primitive at first, but now they moved as quietly as the humans. The instructors tried to maintain their formal combat formations, but the buildings blocked their lines of sight. They couldn't fight in their usual organized patterns. "Spread out and find them," the lead instructor ordered. That was exactly what Du-Han had wanted. His squad picked off the instructors one by one. They used distractions, false movements, and carefully planned crossfires. Everything that alien warfare considered uncivilized came into play. One instructor stepped over a tripwire that Du-Han had set up using their own equipment in an unexpected way. It released a cloud of harmless but dense smoke. As the instructor tried to wave it away, two of Du-Han's squad members tagged him with their training weapons from different directions. Within 20 minutes, 5 of the 6 instructors had been eliminated. The lead instructor stood alone, his combat suit sensors trying to track multiple false signals that Du-Han's team had set up. "Face me properly," the instructor shouted. "This is not how war is fought." "This is exactly how war is fought," Du-Han said quietly, stepping out behind him. "It's fought to be won." The final tag ended the match. The arena fell silent. Then Commander Park started clapping. Slowly, others joined in. The human spectators cheered loudly. Many of the aliens looked shocked. Some looked angry, but others seemed thoughtful, especially the younger ones. "How did you achieve this?" the Academy's chief combat master asked Du-Han afterward. "We used everything available to us," Du-Han explained. "The environment, psychology, misdirection. In real combat, you use every advantage you have. But it was messy, unpredictable. There was no proper flow to your tactics." "That's because we weren't trying to fight properly," Du-Han said. "We were trying to win." That evening, Du-Han's squad celebrated in their quarters. But Commander Park brought serious news. "The Academy Council is worried," she said. "They've never seen their elite instructors defeated like this. Some are calling for restrictions on human combat techniques." Du-Han smiled. "They can try. But first, they'll have to figure out exactly how we did it." The victory marked a turning point. It was the first time human tactics had publicly defeated the Alliance's best. It wouldn't be the last. The emergency alarm woke Du-Han at midnight. Red lights flashed through the Alliance base as Commander Park's voice came over the speakers. "All units to battle stations. Nexus Empire forces detected near Colony 7. This is not a drill." Du-Han rushed to the command center, where he found Park Ji-yoon studying a holographic map. Colony 7 floated as a small blue dot, surrounded by red marks representing Nexus ships. "They brought 6 battlecruisers," Ji-yoon said without looking up. "Standard Alliance doctrine says we need at least 10 ships to defend against that. How many do we have?" 3. The alien commanders were already arguing about retreat plans when Du-Han noticed something about Colony 7's location. It sat near a dense asteroid field, and the system's sun was entering an active phase. "Commander Park," he said quietly, "I have an idea. But the other commanders won't like it." Ji-yoon smiled. "Those are always your best ideas." 2 hours later, Du-Han stood on the bridge of an Alliance ship, watching the Nexus fleet approach. Most of the colony's people had been evacuated, but a small team remained behind volunteers, who understood Du-Han's plan. "This is madness," the ship's alien captain said. "We cannot win this battle." "We're not going to fight their battle," Du-hon replied. "We're going to fight ours." The Nexus ships came in perfect formation, their golden hulls gleaming in the starlight. They moved exactly as their battle computers predicted they should, following centuries of refined space combat doctrine. That's when Du-hon sprung his trap. The Alliance ships retreated toward the asteroid field, appearing to flee in panic. The Nexus fleet followed, exactly as their doctrine demanded they should. But Du-hon had spent hours studying their patterns. "Now," he ordered. Hidden charges detonated throughout the asteroid field. Not enough to damage the Nexus ship's advanced shields, but enough to throw up a massive cloud of metallic dust. The Nexus fleet sensors struggled to penetrate it. At the same time, the volunteers on Colony 7 activated powerful magnetic pulses. In normal space, they would have been useless against the Nexus ship's shields. But here, in the dust cloud, with the system's sun spitting out solar flares, 3 Nexus ships suddenly lost power as the combined magnetic and solar interference overwhelmed their shields. 2 more found their sensors completely blinded by the dust. The last one tried to retreat, but found its path blocked by asteroids that Du-hon's teams had quietly moved into position during the battle. "Fire," Du-hon ordered. The 3 Alliance ships struck from different directions. Using the asteroids as cover, they disabled the Nexus ships one by one. The entire battle took less than 30 minutes. When it was over, 6 Nexus battlecruisers had been captured or disabled. Not a single Alliance ship was lost. The alien captain stared at Du-hon in shock. "This was not a proper space battle," he said quietly. "No," Du-hon agreed. "It was a victory." Later, in her office, Commander Park showed Du-hon the incoming reports. "The Nexus Empire is furious," she said. "They're calling it barbaric warfare and demanding we stop using human tactics." "They're afraid," Du-hon realized. "Not of our weapons, but of the way we think." "Yes," Ju-Yoon nodded. "And that fear is spreading. Even some of our own commanders are worried. They say human warfare is too unpredictable, too traumatic." Du-hon looked out at the stars. "They wanted primitive humans to learn their way of war," he said. "Instead, they're learning to fear ours." The battle for Colony 7 marked a major shift in the war. The Nexus Empire would never again underestimate human tactics, and that, perhaps, was their biggest mistake. News of the Colony 7 victory spread quickly through the Alliance. Du-hon found himself moved to a new position, Special Combat Instructor. His first surprise was meeting his new partner, Lee Sang-mi, a human engineer who had been quietly modifying Alliance weapons. "Watch this," Sang-mi said, showing him a standard Alliance energy rifle she had modified. "I studied how Earth animals hunt. Then I changed the weapon's energy signature to match natural background radiation. The enemy's sensors can't detect it." Du-hon picked up the rifle, impressed. "You're making our primitive methods work with their advanced technology." "Exactly," she smiled. "And that's just the beginning." The Alliance High Command gave them permission to train other units. At first, many alien soldiers resisted learning what they called human tricks. But as more victories came in, attitudes began to change. Du-hon stood before a class of 50 alien soldiers, with Commander Park Ji-yoon watching from the back. "Today, we learn about camouflage," he said. "Not just hiding your body, but hiding your entire presence." He demonstrated how to move without drawing attention, how to use natural events to mask activities, and how to make the enemy look where you weren't. The alien soldiers were surprised to find that their advanced combat suits could be adjusted to help with these primitive techniques. "Your technology isn't the problem," Du-hon explained. "It's how you think about using it." Sang-mi's modifications spread through the Alliance fleet. Ships now carried special pods that could mimic asteroid signatures. Weapons could disguise themselves as background radiation. Communication systems learned to hide messages in what seemed like natural space noise. The results were dramatic. In the next major battle, an Alliance fleet 1/3 the size of its Nexus opponent won without losing a single ship. The week after that, 3 more Nexus attacks failed completely. The enemy is changing their tactics, Ji-yoon reported during a strategy meeting. They're becoming more cautious. Some of their ships refuse to enter asteroid fields or approach solar storm zones at all. Fear, Do-hon said. They're starting to fear what they can't predict. But not everyone was happy about the successes. Do-hon received a message from the Alliance Council requesting a meeting. When he arrived, he found the room full of worried-looking alien leaders. Lieutenant Kim, the council head said, "Your methods are proving very effective. Perhaps too effective. We're receiving reports of Nexus crews surrendering at the first sign of human tactics. Their morale is breaking in ways we've never seen. Isn't that good?" Do-hon asked. "We're winning. But at what cost?" Another council member asked. This morning, a Nexus captain flew his ship into a sun, rather than face what he called the human way of war. They're becoming traumatized by the psychological impact of our new tactics. Do-hon looked at them carefully. "You're not just worried about the enemy, are you?" The council head shifted uncomfortably. "Some of our own soldiers are expressing concern. The uncertainty, the constant need to question everything, it's affecting them too. War used to be predictable, honorable. Now it's effective." Commander Park cut in from her seat at the back. "Now we're actually winning." The council members looked at each other uneasily. Do-hon realized that something bigger than tactical changes was happening. They weren't just changing how the Alliance fought, they were changing how an entire galaxy thought about warfare. And not everyone was ready for that change. Do-hon sat in a quiet room, watching video recordings from recent battles. Next to him, Lee Sang-mi and Commander Park Ji-yoon studied the same footage. The images showed Nexus ships fleeing at the first sign of human-led Alliance forces. 3 more mass surrenders this week, Ji-yoon said softly. They're not even trying to fight anymore in some sectors. Sang-mi pointed to another screen. "Look at these readings. Their crews are showing extreme stress responses even before combat begins. Just knowing they might face human tactics is breaking them." A knock at the door interrupted them. A young alien officer entered, looking nervous. "Lieutenant Kim, you're needed in Medical Bay 7. There's a situation with some captured Nexus soldiers." In the medical bay, Do-hon found a group of Nexus prisoners huddled in corners, refusing to look out the windows into space. The lead doctor, a tall alien with 6 arms, pulled him aside. "They're experiencing severe trauma," the doctor explained. "Not from injuries or torture, but from the uncertainty of the battles they faced. Their minds can't handle warfare, they can't predict or understand." One prisoner, a Nexus captain, noticed Do-hon and approached him. "Why do you fight like this?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Where is the honor in making us fear every shadow, every natural occurrence? My crew jumps at sensor ghosts now. They see human tricks in every asteroid field." Do-hon tried to explain. "War isn't about honor. It's about protecting people and achieving objectives with minimal losses." "We had rules," the captain said. "Patterns. Even in defeat, we understood what was happening. But your ways, they break more than bodies. They break minds." Later that day, Do-hon received an urgent message. The Alliance Council was holding an emergency session, and his presence was required. When he arrived, he found the council chamber packed with representatives from both military and civilian leadership. "Lieutenant Kim," the council head began, "we face a serious ethical dilemma. Our victory against the Nexus Empire seems assured now, but the cost—" He paused, looking troubled. "The cost to the psychological well-being of both sides is becoming severe." Another council member stood. We're seeing mental health crises, even among our own forces. The constant vigilance required by human tactics, the need to suspect every natural phenomenon as a possible trick, it's affecting our people deeply. But we're winning, Du Hon said. Isn't that what matters? At what cost? A civilian leader asked. We're seeing surrendered Nexus soldiers who can't function anymore. They're terrified of open space, the very environment they lived in their entire lives. Even our own troops are showing signs of severe stress. Commander Park spoke up from her seat. Humans learned to handle this kind of warfare over centuries. We evolved with it. But we're asking species who never experienced this to adapt in months. The council head nodded. Exactly. Our medical experts say we're causing deep psychological trauma across multiple species. This goes beyond normal combat stress. We're breaking them in ways they may never recover from. Du Hon looked around the room, suddenly understanding. This wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about what kind of galaxy would be left when the war ended. So, what do you want to do? He asked quietly. We're gathering evidence, the council head replied. Both sides are beginning to agree something must be done about human warfare methods. The galaxy may not be ready for them. Perhaps it never will be. As Du Hon left the chamber, he realized that humanity's greatest weapon had turned out to be something no one expected. Not their technology, not their strength, but the sheer psychological impact of how they thought about war. Du Hon stood at attention in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council. Commander Park Ji-yoon and Lee Sang-mi stood beside him, along with representatives from every human military unit in the Alliance. The room was packed with delegates from both the Alliance and, surprisingly, the Nexus Empire. This emergency session will now begin, the council head announced. We are here to address the most significant military crisis in galactic history. Du Hon expected to hear about a new Nexus weapon or strategy. Instead, the council head looked directly at the human delegation. Humanity, he said, has changed warfare forever, and not in a way our civilizations can accept. The Nexus Empire's representative stood up. Du Hon was shocked to see how tired and stressed the alien looked. Our medical facilities are overwhelmed, the representative said. Not with physical injuries, but with psychological trauma. Entire crews refuse to serve if they might face human tactics. Even after surrender, another delegate added, they can't recover. They see threats in every shadow. They panic at normal space phenomena. Some can't even look at asteroid fields anymore. Commander Park stepped forward. We only did what was necessary to win, she said firmly. Yes, the council head replied. You did. And that's exactly the problem. Your species evolved with this kind of warfare. You learned to handle its psychological impact over thousands of years. But for us, he paused. For us, it's too much, too fast. Lee Sang-mi spoke up. We can modify our tactics, make them less intense. An Alliance medical officer shook her head. We've studied this extensively. The problem isn't just your methods, it's how your species thinks about combat. You turn everything into a potential weapon. Every natural feature becomes a trap. Every normal reading could be a trick. Our minds can't handle that level of constant uncertainty. Du Hon watched as both Alliance and Nexus representatives nodded in agreement. Former enemies were united in their fear of human warfare. The council head raised his hands for silence. We have reached a difficult but necessary decision. As of today, all human military personnel will be honorably discharged from galactic forces. Furthermore, humans will be banned from participating in any future galactic conflicts. The room erupted in whispers. Du Hon stood still, processing the words. This isn't a punishment, the council head continued. In fact, it's the highest compliment we could give. Your species has proven too effective at warfare. Your methods, while brilliant, are simply too psychologically damaging for our civilizations to endure. What about Earth's protection? Commander Park demanded. Earth will be granted protected status. Both the Alliance and Nexus Empire have agreed to this. No one will dare attack a world that produces warriors like you. Later, as Du-hon packed his quarters, Lee Sang-mi visited him. It's ironic, she said. We proved we weren't primitive at all. That's why they're sending us home. Commander Park joined them, holding their discharge papers. They thought we'd learn their civilized ways, she said with a small smile. Instead, they learned to fear ours. Du-hon looked out at the stars one last time from his Alliance quarters. We came here thinking we were behind them in everything, he said quietly. But in the end, we were too far ahead in the one thing that mattered most, understanding the true nature of war. As the human soldiers returned to Earth, the galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief. Warfare would return to its predictable, civilized patterns. But everyone knew that somewhere out there, on a primitive blue world, lived a species so effective at combat that the entire galaxy had agreed to ban them, not for being weak, but for being too strong in ways no one had expected.